So some people may try to work on their diet while at home. Some people may try to work on a workout routine. Others may try to do something like learn a new language while they're stuck at home. However, as sports bettors, we're looking to sharpen our sports betting skills. And that might be a big reason why you're here right now. So let's discuss some of those options. Catching up on your reading is probably a great activity to both stimulate some new ideas as well as catch up on the learning curve. I will preface this by saying that I've heard that Amazon is deprioritizing the delivery of non-essential deliveries, so you may want to explore the Kindle version in a lot of these books I'm about to mention. But if you're still new to sports betting and you want to progress as maybe a sharper sports bettor, there are some books that if you haven't read, you should probably read by now. The Logic of Sports Betting by Ed Miller and Matthew Davidow is great for anyone to learn kind of sharp bettor's approach to sports betting market. Another book is Sharper by Poker Joe. This book's a couple years old, but it has some really interesting information and angles that I haven't seen appear anywhere else in any other book. So for that case alone, it's worth kind of looking into. And then another good read is also one that goes back even further than that, is a book called Conquering Risk by Eli Costal. Now this book talks about not only sports betting and some of the angles you can use there, but it also talks about the stock market and how to use some of your market analysis in stocks, which might be of interest to many of us right now. When this webcast posts to YouTube, I'm going to include links in the description to all the books that I'm recommending in this section. So if you don't have time to write these down, you can check out the replay on YouTube, and in the description of the video will be links to every book that I mentioned here, as well as any other articles I mentioned. So perhaps you want to use your time to learn about something related to statistics or data science in general. I read a fascinating book last year. It was titled A Student's Guide to Bayesian Statistics, and it was very much a textbook, but it opened my eyes to using Bayesian techniques in my sports betting models. Now, I can't say I've made extensive use of some of the methods that I learned, but I understand more about it than I had before. Learning about statistics and data science is more fascinating once you try to apply it to something. Likewise, if you want to explore the psychology of betting, there are a couple books that I've read that I find pretty fascinating and could help. Probably the premier book on this topic is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. It's a great read for anyone who gambles, really. For some of you, this is just a hobby, and the idea of pursuing it with a level of a thought process like this is almost antithetical to why you even bet sports in the first place, and I understand that. That's fine. But these books can kind of really expand your mind and expand how you approach your betting to take it kind of outside the box and to a different level. Another good book is Joseph Buchdow's Squares and Sharps, Suckers and Sharks. It explores why we bet like we do, the history of betting, how it impacts how we bet. And I will mention that I don't believe this book is available in paperback or Kindle form from what I could find. So this might not be available, but it's still a good book, and it's useful for kind of exploring, why we do what we do and why we enjoy sports betting so much. And then maybe you'd like to use this opportunity to learn how to code. So coding is kind of the great white hope for sports bettors. You'd love to make a robot where it does everything. It identifies the good wagers. It places the bets for you. You just sit back and watch the money flow in. Well, the good news is, yes, you probably can do scripts and bots that could automate almost all aspects of sports betting. The bad news is, though, it's a long learning curve, and quite frankly, it's still garbage in, garbage out. So the scripts and the bots that you write will never be any smarter than if you were making the bets yourself. They may just take out some of the human element. But learning to code is not going to make you instantly a winning sports bettor. However, learning to code could make you a much more efficient sports bettor. So if you want to use this time to learn a programming language, it's not a bad use of your time. There are literally thousands of online resources willing to help you learn to code. You can search YouTube. There's plenty of videos on step-by-step learning to code. There's online courses you can take from various, not only accredited schools, but also online learning sites where people sell classes to teach you different things. And trust me, there are plenty out there for learning different coding languages. So you'll find that sports bettors who code tend to use either Python or R, or a combination of the two. Now, I don't have time in this presentation to kind of get into a debate of the various merits of each. However, I think I can give you a good tip regarding coding, and that is you should always look to see if someone else has already done what you're trying to do. It definitely speeds the plow. The best place to find any open source code that you can use is GitHub. If you're not familiar with GitHub, it's basically a repository of code in various states of development for just about everything under the sun. You'll find plenty of Python and R code here, and it applies to, you'll even find some that are applied directly to sports betting tasks. Most are in ready-to-use APIs or libraries. You can scrape the play-by-play data, you can pull stats, you can check the current line at Pinnacle, the list goes on. If you're starting a coding project, the best move is probably to check GitHub first and then go from there. And assuming you go down that path of trying to either learn to code or expanding on your coding knowledge, I strongly recommend having a predetermined task at which you're looking to solve. For instance, earlier I mentioned you would want to track the closing lines for your bets if you're not already doing so. Well, writing a script that will populate closing lines automatically would be a good task to help you drive that project. It's a lot easier to kind of find a solution to something than to start coding and not knowing what problem you're trying to solve in the first place. And then lastly, with this section, maybe some of you are interested in building your first quantitative model. And if you haven't done that, then I would definitely encourage you to do that, because it's a great exercise, and there have in the past year been some very good books written about the topic. Andrew Mack has written 2 very good books which focus on building sports statistics models in Excel. In both of those books, he did a great job of not just spoon feeding you, but giving you ideas and giving you framework, and then leaving a lot of the heavy lifting for you to learn on your own. And I believe this is how it should be. You want to succeed by originating your own ideas. You don't want to just have to copy off of other people, because if you're copying off of something, the inefficiency is already gone out of that market. So he purposely wrote these books using Excel because it has the lowest barrier of entry of any statistical package, but also because he knew that most other quantitative handicappers are using other things like R and Python, and that putting a book out with Excel would be less threatening to them. And that was a very strong point that he made, and I think it's good. I think his books are very valuable. The second volume just came out in the past couple weeks. So if you haven't checked out those books and you want to get into model building, they're very good resources. Now, if you do want a little bit of spoon feeding, there is an article that was written by Lloyd Danzig on medium.com. And he wrote this a few months back, and it basically shows you how to build a basic quantitative model, even up to adding in some simulations as well. He also used Excel for his work, and I, for the same reason that Andrew did, is because it helps reach a greater audience quicker. And I think it's a very good article, and I'll post the link to that as well as to all the other books that I mentioned, again, in the YouTube description on this video. So that brings us to our final point here, last idea for today, and that is networking.